Whiting filled his electric kettle to make himself a cup of tea. He stared into the mirror above his sink. He was 48 years old, but his appearance evoked an earlier generation, just as tweed evoked mustiness. He wore his dark, finely textured hair combed straight back, a style that accentuated his receding hairline and the strands of silver at his temples. His eyes were hazel and solemn, with a moistness that suggested sorrow or apology. His skin, which was always pale, was nearly ashen after the earlier upset. As he replayed the incident outside the boardroom, he could not escape that the argument he'd overheard was remarkable.
I won't allow this.
I will not be undermined. And that he was now involved. And I am the chair, if only for having been at the scene. Whiting's habit of talking aloud to himself had begun in childhood, after his parents' divorce. Left alone for long stretches, he had turned to these soliloquies for comfort when he found himself slipping into anxiety or sadness, two emotions that often hounded him in concert. His sense of isolation was so complete that when he recalled his childhood, he remembered it only as fragments without sound. A deserted train station at night, lengthening shadows on a brick wall across from their apartment building. Sitting beside his mother in the back of a taxi, the lights from the city streets illuminating the side of her face. The silence broken only by his murmurs of reassurance. He passed through the blue tent to the entrance of the striped one. Whiting hesitated, then pulled open the flaps and stepped forward into the darkness. He smelled fresh sawdust and something else, a heavy, rich aroma that filled his nostrils and lay upon his tongue. The animals. Sarah James walked slowly from her living room to her bedroom, carrying a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. A succession of votive candles offered the only light in her apartment. As she passed each candle, she bent to extinguish its light. When the last candle had gone out, she lingered a moment in the doorway to her bedroom, then stepped inside. A second shape, nearly indistinguishable in the darkness, followed her into the room and closed the door behind them. The band struck up a frenzied march so loud it almost sounded like 2 different compositions at once. The curtains opened wide and 4 dark horses thundered from the passageway. 4 pairs of riders in shimmering blue leotards and tights stood in formation on the undulating backs of the animals. The center acrobat wrestled the reins and shouted commands. Whiting drew back in his chair as the horses hurtled past, muscles rippling, their hooves and hot breaths drowning out the music. One horse moved to bite another on its neck. Whiting gasped as the horse pulled back its lips, exposing great yellow teeth and pink gums. The second horse rolled its eyes and whinnied. By intermission, the sky was leaden. Lights for the concession stand and the exterior of the tent were turned on, but the heaviness of the air seemed to mute their effect. The wind picked up, gusted violently. The roll of tickets at the admissions table unfurled and rose like a viper in the sudden gust. Lightning flashed in the middle distance. The temperature plummeted. Roustabouts moved heaters into the animals' trailers. A few families made their way to the cars to flee the approaching storm. Still others lingered outside the tent to study the sky. He came to you for help. I know he did. Tell me what he said. She stepped closer. He was identified by a prisoner at the government center. We're afraid he's been kidnapped, or he's being pursued. Whiting could not concentrate, could hardly grasp the enormity of his failure to serve, even as it was beginning to sink in. I ask you, urge you to separate yourself from the circus, said Jerry. Pray for them, but keep your distance. Whiting exhaled heavily. So that's your solution. I suffer, and the only plausible explanation, the only remedy, is to leave the circus. No good can come from the path you're traveling, Sam. Whiting answered, "Believe me, however great this suffering, to return to my old life is untenable, a punishment I cannot endure." Jerry paused for a moment, then asked, "Cui bono?" The question, to what good, came as a slap. "That is none of your concern," said Whiting. "Then I will pray for you, Sam." "Pray for yourself." Even before he saw Stimple's stricken reaction, Whiting recoiled from what he had said. But he did not ask forgiveness, did not call out his sorrow at his transgression. Instead, he turned and left the garden.